Minutia of court cases is actually pretty boring. I mean, it's bad. So, but whatever. We all have our things. Like, you guys are gonna go home and complain about programming classes, like programming languages.
No, I never.
And your sister's gonna like be like, uh-huh, yep. Oh, that sucks, right?
No, I just told him to leave me alone.
Yeah, well, but you're gonna get to that, what you call it, right? Like, so and so. One time I complained about a coworker to my wife, thinking I was just gonna vent. And she kept offering me advice, so I was like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I just wanted to vent, you know what I mean? I didn't want to solve a problem, right? But whatever. We deal with different situations. All right, so we're gonna open a command line window. Now, I have this somewhat scripted, but I do not script it completely. So if something doesn't work, we'll work around it, but I do have a script that I work with. There are only a few commands that you're going to want to learn anyway, and they're all in that guide. So there's not like it's what's called. So I'll make the guide available. I can actually make this available, but my notes are actually written for me and not for you. So good luck, right? I mean, it's all there, but I don't know if it's that useful. So I'm going to go to CD to the desktop. And I already made a student app. And all I did was create it. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything interesting. I just created it. And I did ng new student app. Boom. That's all I did. Yeah, there you go. It does take a second, so I'm going to start it. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and open it if I can find it. Right? Remember, node modules is the folder you're going to remove. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open it all up. Although I won't need all of it. Okay? At some point, we'll have to look it up later. So, oh no, that's even worse. What are we doing? Okay, this is bad. Cache folder. Open folder. Let's open some crap. All right, let's just open source. We don't need the other stuff right now. Okay, so this is again a default. Should open a browser. It hasn't yet, but it's trying to because there's just too many things to open up. 99% of the time, this is all you'll never need to open for Angular. Because you don't really screw around with the configuration. You create the app and then the configuration is essentially done. So we don't do anything with that. We're gonna have that closed for a while, but we don't generally do anything with it. We're gonna see the index. We don't even screw around with the index. We'll see that later. We may never have to do it. Well, I don't think we ever have to do anything with main. Styles, these are where the global styles go, not just for the app, for certain pages and so forth. The only thing I want to mention to make sure you do is make sure you put the app routing module in there. Without it, if you don't put it in there, you can create it yourself, but then you have to do a shit ton of work to get it to work. Much better to just wipe out the app and then recreate it. This is not one of the things where it's going to be super easy to copy and paste things in and out of. It just doesn't work that way because when you generate the files as appropriate, it actually creates the things you need in the other files. So it's really important that you start from a good place and keep working towards a good place. I recommend doing one thing at a time, whatever that looks like. Do your list page, we're going to do that today. We have to create a class name, first thing. We have to create a class name. Remember, we have a data access object just like we had in Spring. We're going to create a student object that's going to resemble just the data items. It's not going to have any methods or anything, but we need it to have the things that we need for the data item. The second thing we're going to need to do is create a service. We're only going to create one endpoint initially. That endpoint's just going to go and get all the students, right? So it's going to be a pretty simple endpoint. But that's what we're going to do before we even create a first component. Not excited. Okay. Just before we get started, I want to remind everyone that November 7th will be recorded. I can't record it until after this class because I gotta know where I stop. Unfortunately, so I can actually record the next class. But it will be recorded. I don't know if I'll be able to communicate on Monday, so we'll see. But I will be apparently fine and capable on Tuesday, so if you need anything, let me know. Also, I got homework 3. I'm gonna post a solution today. So I think that'll be pretty useful. I did homework 3 with a string review ID. So I left it as a string. You feel free to use my solution of homework 3 for your homework. Excuse me. My solution of homework 3 as for your homework 4. It's totally fine. You are going to need to make a change. We'll talk about that later, but not a big deal. Okay. So now that we said that, let's go ahead and generate a class. So almost everything is a command that you're going to enter in here. Yes. You go in the folder of questions, say student app, and then we're going to generate a class. We're going to go ng. That's the command for forgetting what ng stands for. I don't remember what ng stands for. It's Angular's command line. Just leave it at that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say generate class. Now, later on, we're going to learn we can shorthand some of this. Generate, we can write with just a G. Class, you cannot shorten with just a C. It would create a component instead of a class. And then we give it the class name, and in our case, it's going to be student. I can uppercase it, but I think it uppercases it by default. Now, press enter and watch what happens. Really important here, when you generate a class, it tells you what classes it creates. You have a problem with the class, something's wrong with it, you know what you can do? Wipe it out, right? Very easy to do. And here's the class it creates. See the lowercase turned into uppercase, so it's fine. Pretty empty. You have a spec, which is actually for testing. Okay? We're going to pretty much ignore that, okay? Because there's some things we're going to have to cut out, and there goes our something. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a student. So what is a student? We're going to have, I think it's the int ID, right? Correct? Don't make me look it up. I can look it up, but it's a string name, right? And then string major. And then double GPA. I can look it up, but I think that's it, right? No? All right. I'm not super confident, so
No, it is.
I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I should have separated the full file. So we need to enter it. Now, bad news is we have to do a TypeScript. Good news is we actually have types that we can use. String is just string, so that one's easy. Just type string and then name. Did I do that wrong? Oh, I do it backwards? I don't think I did. Yeah, I absolutely did it backwards. Why are you having a problem with this? This is literally right. Oh, I think I know why. No. Oh, no. Okay. So something weird's happening. We'll figure it out in a minute. I'm going to open up an older one and see if we can't get that one. So for double, for floats, we actually have to use number. I did that backwards. Yeah, it's automatically defaults into a shortcut. Okay, so I'm gonna very quickly. We'll have one. So I typically do not use unlike what I did with the Java stuff, I don't actually download a project and have it. So I'm just going to quickly look at another example. I'm 90% sure I have it done though. It's just not liking something. So just give me a second. While we do that though, I actually have one thing I can show you real quick. Two, let me go type it out. Boop. Here are your basic types. I'm going to make sure you have those. You have any. Any is just what? What kind of type is any? Anything. The most common ones you're going to use are Boolean, number, string. You can use array, of course, but there's some that are weird. I generally try to avoid them if I can. But yeah. Yeah, I don't want to look at the tutorial. Let me just quickly do this. Take 2 seconds. I download the one from last year. Again, usually I don't do this because I actually follow a script. I have a script next to me and I usually use it. Ooh, I must have recorded this class. Can you see that? There were a bunch of small ones instead of, all right, let's just take a second. I'm sorry. Annoying me. I bet you it's fine. How much you want to bet it's fine? I'm just being stupid. Oh, sorry. File isn't playable. I think it's funny you think it's playable. I'm just using the wrong format. There you go. Ta-da! All right, now spot paste it here, and then this ID is, if I want it to be an integer, I can say big int, or I can just say number. Number would be just fine. EID is a number as well. Okay. Remember, JavaScript doesn't have a large variety of things. Same thing. So it's name, colon, string. You're going to get this code, by the way. So I just forgot the format, unfortunately. And I'll also share that link that shows you types. 90% of the types, though, that you're going to use are numbers, Boolean strings. No, not Boolean strings. Yeah. Integer, floats, strings, and Boolean, right, are 90% of the types. So it's not like you have a large number. And I want GPA to be lowercase, actually. And I want that to be number. Burr, burr, burr. GTT. There we go. Sorry. Formatting is not on here, unfortunately. Because of course not. Yes? All right. Another thing is that I typically run the script before I actually show you guys. Didn't do that, obviously. Sorry. All right, so now we're going to generate a component, and I'm going to do G. No. Yeah, I'm going to do G so you can see it, but you can't use the shorthand for everything. Student service is one that we want to do. I'm going to call it student service. I might get rid of this because it might create their name, student service. Okay. Yeah, so it's good that we can delete them. Yes. Yay. And now I'm going to generate it again without the service on the end. Yay. Okay. So now we have the student service. Bink, bink, bink. Looks like student service, looks appropriate. You see the constructor, the injectable. This is injectable into other things. This is not a component. This is not what's called. This is to be injected into components. So now we need some things. We need to import the student class. Right. Thankfully, code helps you with this. If you start typing it tells you where it's from, right? Import student from blah, 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 because we're going to use the student service. Inside the student service, we're going to use students. So we need that. We also need, remember I told you we were going to need to connect to the database, right? And HTTP headers, which we don't actually need. I show you guys how to do it. Now, this is a module, and then VS Code doesn't know how to do that, right? So what do we have to do? We have to say from where it's from. And it helps us with this. Angular common. Oops. And HTTP. Boom. Now we will not need HTTP headers for most of what we do. But if we wanted to look at a header, we need HTTP headers. Once we play around, I think I have an example at some point where I play around with a header, just so you can see that I play around with a header. But for the most part, we don't do anything with it. It's useful troubleshooting, like when you're doing like the session stuff. So if you want to see the headers, it's in the session headers are important, but it's not really useful for our particular work. But the HTTP client is absolutely necessary. And then we need one more. You guys love the observable pattern. And it helped me do that one. Yay. So why do we need the observable pattern? Because we're actually going to, if there's a change to the database, or if there's a change to the file, we're going to automatically. So we want those objects to be, those things that are returned are going to be what we call observable. So we change and so forth. The system knows that there's work that needs to be done to glue them back to the database. Okay. Now, we need a URL string. We're going to need a private field student, I don't know, students URL, right? And then we're going to set the URL. Yay. All right. This is where Postman comes a little bit into play, but we don't even have to run the system yet. If you open up, I got to figure out where I got to find the student thing so we can run it. But if we open up Postman, you can see, well, it was obviously test and reviews. Shit, I don't have the other ones open. Oh, well. What I was going to say is that typically I had them open, and so I could just use the URL from that. We know it's going to be localhost. We know it's going to be 80 whatever. So we're going to actually find that project now. Good news. Graded all your homeworks. Bad news is I may unfortunately show your homeworks. So stop the share. Okay. Sorry, kids. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're good. It's not going to open. Nothing's open. It is open or whatever. Thank God this is clicked. Right? It was grading.text. Would keep giving away someone's grade, unfortunately. Come on, we gonna close? Yeah. What are you doing? It's closed. Just go away. All right, you can open it from this, by the way, but do not. NetBeans makes it very difficult to do some of the things you do. You have to import libraries and sort of just to look at Angular and to look at JavaScript and so forth. It's actually a pain in the butt. So I don't recommend doing it. Can you do it? Yes. Do you want to do it? No. What's the most recent one? October 17th looks promising. Yes? Well, yeah. I had generated students. I showed you how to do that. Crap, this is the wrong one. All right. So this is definitely the wrong one. What were we doing on October 17th? Generating HTML files, but that's not what we really need. So October 17th generated what you call it. So the one before that is October 12th. Does that sound right? Yup. Here we go. This is the one with the validation error messages and the validation. By the way, for those of you doing the homework, if you had an ID, the SID is an integer. If you had an integer ID, review ID, this is working. If you don't have, then this min, positive, none of that works for a string. So yes, not ideal. Yeah, doesn't work for a string. But if you look down here somewhere, actually, yeah, see, I put the regular expression pattern for you to use a string. Specifies the size and the regular expression pattern, and you're done. So, but whatever. All right, so this is student controller. Just want to look over it real fast. Students, students, students. I have a students two because I did it twice. I did it SID two different ways. And then students, and then you see students. It keeps going, students and students. You see the URL always starts with the same thing, right? So we're going to save the URL so we can save us time.
Professor, we can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I switched. I had to open NetBeans. I'm sorry. I had to open NetBeans. And so let me go ahead and do that right now. I was just actually finding the project. So we were just finding the project. I was pointing out that if you open the endpoint for the student controller, the most recent version, the endpoints are all the same. So the basic part of the URL, the beginning part of the URL is the same for everyone. Yes. And so that's what we're actually going to do. Now, the easy way to get the entire URL is to actually run it. We're going to need it to run eventually. I'm going to turn it off before we actually start running it because it's going to be a pain in the butt. Also, I don't remember what port number we were running on. Y'all remember? Is it 8080 or? It says in the beginning part, so. Yeah, it's 8080. So we need the URL. So what can we do? We can go here. Oh, come on, Ruth. Got a little. There you go, right? And then that student URL we had here, we can type here. Okay. Why is this important? Because that way, when we use the URL, when we actually call the HTTP client, we're actually going to be calling a URL. So we need to be able to have the same root everywhere, right? And if you have the endpoints and you see the endpoints, because you do, in your case, you will have the endpoints, right? Because it's your server. You see students. To get a list of students, you call this endpoint with a GET request. To get single students, you call this get this endpoint with the SID and a GET request, right? So having a base URL simplifies a lot of your work. Is it necessary? No. Right? You really didn't want to have it and you just hated it, right? You didn't. It's not absolutely necessary. However, it does make your life easy. All right, you ready for injection? You guys like your shots? Get your shots? No? Well, I hope you don't give me rabies. I didn't say my jokes were good. I know nobody said my jokes were good. You don't come here for the jokes. I mean, Nathan does, but we all know what's wrong with Nathan. No, I'm
What
joking.
the?
He's like, what'd I do? All right. So this is injection. This is how easy it is to inject this file, HTTP client, into this service. All you say is in the constructor, private HTTP :HTTP client. You want it to be private for the same reason you make private fields in a in a regular class. So only this class should be able to use its HTTP client, right? So that's all that's doing. But you don't have to actually put anything in the code. It automatically knows what an HTTP client is and creates one for you, and then you just get to use it. Injection's not bad, right? If you need it, you can inject it, right? And that's what dependency is. Injection means we only need to import the things we absolutely need. All right. Now, remember our endpoint students we talked about a minute ago? We're going to create a method here. It's going to public get all students. Boom. Right? Obviously, this is not finished. We need to know what the return type is. And this is where things get a little crazy. We want it to be observable. Why do we want it to be observable? If changes are made somewhere else, we want something to make it aware that this is changing, right? Your components are going to use observables to, if something changes in the component class, it's got to change in the view. So that's what that's used for. So virtually everything you're working with is an observable of some type. Okay. And this is how we do that. Now, how do we actually have the code in here? Turn this dot HTTP dot already forgot get, right? And it's a student. Oh, nope. It's not a single student, it's a array of students, right? This dot. Come on, Ruth. There we go. That's pretty easy, right? Also, I hate formatting, but it's not formatting. Stupid thing. That's it. That's our whole endpoint. I have bad news for you. What if you screw this up? You actually won't be able to tell until you have, this is one of the downsides, in my opinion, of Angular in general. There's some glue code that needs to be written that cannot be tested until you have the component in place. That sucks. In my mind, that sucks. And the main reason is just pretty simple, as is I don't like writing a bunch of code. I personally don't like writing a bunch of code and then waiting to see if it all works, because then what happens if something went crazy? What happens if I use student here instead of observable? It literally won't work. You'll get errors, but it'll be like, what does this mean? You'll have to look them up, and then you find out it needs to be observable, and a lot of troubleshooting, and you're trying to figure out what is going wrong because you have a lot of code. Do one thing at a time and make sure you're doing it what's called. Now, we have one more thing we have to do. And you're like, what? But I am not going to do it because we want to show errors. I always forget to show the errors. That's where class ends up early. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we finished our student service as far as we need to today. So God bless you, by the way. Thank you for not blowing your head off. Couldn't help it. So we're going to generate a component, and it's going to be student list, right? If you type NGGC student list, it would work. The C, if you just use the C, is a component. But I like to type it out. And you can see here, when you do that, it creates a folder for student list, because the folder for student list, you're creating a component, has a component.html, which is the template. It has the component.ts. It has a component.css if you want to actually have specific CSS for just this component. You could, right? We're not going to do that. We're going to put everything in that styles and just be done. Right? Right. So go back to our thing, and then you see here student list. Da-da-da. Student list works. Yay. All right. We need to look at the component specification first, because that's what we're going to work with. Component specification. Boom. And we need some more imports. What do we need? I think we can do both at the same time, no? Crap, you can't. Sorry. I was thinking we can do both because they're in the same folder, but no. Wait, why didn't it not do it for me? Stupid thing. Do it for me. There you go. You'll notice I like it when it does things for me because that's nice. There we go. We need both of those. Now comes the awesome part. You remember our service? The reason why it doesn't have any constructor information in it, there's no code in here. It'd be fine if it did, by the way. We don't care about that. But watch this. So we need to create a student service, right? How do we do that? Nope, did that wrong again, didn't I? Student service, and that's going to be a. I always name it student service, so I named it SS today just so to be different. I can name it whatever I want, but I'm just being different today. Yes. And now I have a student service. Whenever I want a student service, I have, in fact, a student service. And you're like, no way. Now comes the life cycle. You guys like life cycles, right? Can you think of any life cycle in real life? I mean, you're born, you learn to do things, you grow older, and then you die, right? Pretty much. Not that interesting. No, I'm kidding, of course. But life cycle of the component, it has to have an init. So when the component gets called, because it's going to be displayed, you initialize. It has to have an initialize. That is ng on init. That is the method that gets called when this thing starts up. Okay. If a component goes to sleep because another component is there and the component comes back, ng on it comes back as well. Okay. So it's important to think about what's in the ng init. So, okay. Now ready for the observable part that's weird? Okay. We want to get all students. Pretty simple, right? Nope. This doesn't work. Remember the observable part? You have to actually subscribe to the results. You can't just get the results. Right? So you got to go subscribe. I know, right? And you go data, right? Because you're going to get the data from it. And oh, did I miss something? I did miss something. Son of a bitch. Guess what I forgot? Come on. Yeah. There we go. All right. There we go. We needed an array for to hold the list of students. Roster would have been better, but whatever. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this. And I did not get this correct, by the way. So let's fix it. You're like, what do you mean you're not right? You got it wrong. So I got to fix it. No. Yeah, too many, I have too many quotation marks. This one's wrong. This is this one. Yep. Ah. And you go, why does it work that way, Dr. Ruth? Because it's stupid. No. It's because you're actually able to subscribe to different results and only have to care about the things that, how do I describe this? You only have to worry about the things that you care about. So if you want to know about the errors, you can get the error data. You want to know about the data that comes from it, the body of the response, that's in data. Right? There's so many different things you can grab. And so that's what it's about. So it's subscribe, you can get the body, and then you can get the error response, you can get this and this and this. And so you just would, it'd be commas here separating the other elements that you need. But since we only need data for a get all students, that's the body, that's fine. And son of a bitch, guess what? Another thing done. Y'all are loving this, right? Doesn't it seem like it's a lot of things to do anything? It's not, right? Once you get used to doing this, like it goes much quicker. But anyway, so a component, we don't want that. We want H1. We want list of students. And then what? I should have copied from somewhere. I'm sorry. I didn't think about it. I don't know why I specified board equals 1 because I'm a sucker for punishment. I should just be copying this from somewhere. I'm an idiot. Sorry.
So could we essentially take this from our homework? That we, homework 3, just pop that right into there, it's good to go.
So yes, there is a change we need to make to the server. We're going to see that's obvious. This is not going to work. Huh?
But at least for the table, like how we have it formatted and everything.
Oh yeah. Like you mean take for homework 4, can we use the tables that you created in homework 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really highly recommend doing so. Problem is you don't copy it in. You're going to see what we're going to do. We're actually going to take you remember the students array we just created?
Yeah.
We're going to use that students array to actually populate our list of things.
Okay. So we're not going to have copy and paste the 5,000 things.
No.
Okay.
In fact, one thing I want to point out, somebody asked me, is it necessary to have 5,000 things? And homework 1, it was necessary because I needed you guys to slice and dice it.
Yes.
Since then, if you want to create it, if you want to knock it down to 10, knock it down to 10.
Okay. Well, I remember watching one of them question over one of your videos that said, "Fine, homework 3 got into 5,000." So okay.
Nope. You could have left it as what's called. So we're going to go with major and we're going to go with GPA. Boop. Right? So far, no magic. Yes? Couple things. I want you to notice, there's no HTML stuff here. There's no end HTML page and all those things. Eventually, our module is going to get loaded from something like this, right? Yeah, we're going to get rid of this, but it's going to get loaded from something like this, right? So it's going to have, I think this is a better example when you see it. Yeah. So it's going to get loaded something like this, right? So instead of see the app root, instead of it being whatever it is, it's going to be that. So the rest of that body, the HTML, all those things are actually coming from other pages. So you only need to worry about the content that you're interested in. So it may seem a little weird, but there you go. But there's no magic so far, right? I mean, I think we'd all agree there's really not even that interesting. Okay. So we ready to do a for loop? Y'all like for loops, right? What needs to be repetitive? This is why I did the homework 3 the way I did it. We need to repeat a table row for each record, right? So what if I do TR and then I type asterisk NG4 equals let, no, excuse my language. I'm just having a bad day. Student of students. Boom. All right. How many of y'all remember for each? All y'all should know what a for each is. Yes, you know what for each is, right? Nope. Dude, Nathan, you're killing me, Small. A for each is when we loop through an array or a data structure of some type, item by item. And as we loop through the item, we have a handle for each thing. So inside the TR, we can reference one iteration's student by saying let student of student. So it's essentially just a for each. And that's all it is. We're just going to loop through the student array. And you remember our little brackety things before? Why am I doing all this work? I hate work. Work sucks. Besides, I have tenure, right? Doesn't work that way, buddy. So, all right, remember our student? Yes. I'm just going to use those fields. That's all I'm doing here. So SID, bracket, name. And by copying it, by the way, you can guess that I'm actually cheating because I actually know that all the fields are exactly this, right? And so I'm not going to skip a field or do something stupid, right? Now, Andrew, I have a question for you. Seems too easy, right? Doesn't it seem easy? All right. They got some bad news for you. We're almost done, but it really is this simple to do a for loop. Your final project will do something like this. Some tricks we'll show you along the way, right? Like the GPA, we want the GPA to look like 3.14 as an example. We can do some number formats and so forth. But this part of it, almost every for loop you're going to write, it's going to look like this. Right? I mean, unless you're filtering it, right? It's going to look like this. It's not magic, right? So that's the part. We're going to do an if statement, hopefully by the end of the day. That's my goal. We should have time to do it, but let's go ahead and finish the things we need to do. We need to modify the root application to include all the things we need. Not that big a deal though. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading it. Yep. Sorry, I'm just having trouble reading it. And I was like, what? Yep. So we need to import a couple things here. As you can see, when I created my student list component, look, it created it in there automatically, right? That's why I tell you to generate things one at a time and be careful about when you generate things, because when you generate things, you create something and now you'll have this student list component that you'd have to get rid of, right? If you fail to get rid of it, it won't work. Yeah.
Can you just refactor like the names of that stuff or no?
It's not VS Code isn't smart enough.
Okay.
So it's helping me a little bit, but it's not smart enough to remove things automatically.
So when we have this code, we just it'd be much easier just to restart and do it all step by step with our own stuff.
If you want to actually create the components and get the imports correctly, yeah. It'd be much better to do I'll describe this nicely. You can remove the student list component, you would need to remove it from a couple places, but if you did so, would take no long period of time, but it would be easier to copy off the code that you want to save and then just recreate it pretty quickly, right? The thing that takes a long time, the only part that takes a long time is to generate the actual application. It's because that's when it creates the node module. So I actually do not blow it up, by the way. I usually just change it. All right, we need 2 imports here. We need our student service. And to do that, we need student. Come on, why didn't you do it for me? Because it was being stupid. Oops. So yeah, sometimes it's just easier to just blow it up. Okay, so we need to import a student service and one more. I didn't need the student, by the way. I was getting happy. Nope. Fortunately, I gotta take this. Type this. Sorry. I'm getting old. It's hard to read. Okay, so we need the client module because we're gonna need it. We need the student service and we don't actually need the student. I just got happy and I saw two things that we needed to import, so I just assumed those were the two things.
So you said if you have it report and it's not used, it's gonna sit there and just sort of kind of index things up. So it's
No,
not
so when you try to import, when it tries to import it and it's not there,
Mhm.
it's gonna fail.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna realize, oh, I need to remove that.
So it's not like that being where it'll just be like, oh.
Where it
it's
automatically
not used.
removes it. Yeah, no, there's no automatic removing. Some of these imports have allowed me to automatically finish things.
Yeah.
Which is great. But you're gonna find that VS Code only helps you out so far. And it's really sucky that it sometimes it seems like it's helping in other areas. Like I just had to type out Angular common HTTP, so it didn't know where HTTP client module was, as an example. So on our imports, we need to add that client module. In our providers, remember my student service? It's not injectable in any of the components unless it's in this provider. Less than it's in the list of acceptable providers. It's not injectable. And neither if the import is not here for the client module, you'll get an error when it tries to use the client module in the service. Right? So silly, it's silly enough, but this is a problem. Okay, so what the hell just happened there? I'm not even sure what just happened. Because I was trying to just click control save. Okay, so we're gonna make sure we save everything. Nope, we got everything saved, right? Everything is open is saved. All right, so a couple things we need to do, and we're not done yet, but we finally created enough that we should be able to test something, right? No, it's not gonna work still, but. Right. Yeah, because we didn't even do the. Yeah, we didn't even put it into the app. So it's never gonna actually show up yet. But that's fine, because it's not gonna work at all. But let's go ahead and make sure this guy is running. Is it still running? Ta-da. Then we're gonna go ng serve. And it's going to fail. But it's gonna fail in the weirdest possible way. That was awesome.
I don't know how that happened.
I don't think you could do it again if you
I
try.
don't think so either. So I'm not gonna try.
Okay, let me make sure I didn't skip anything while we wait for this to load. I think I did, but let's see. I can read this so much better, by the way. This is insane how good I can, how well I can read this.
Yeah.
Huh? Did I get what you call it? And why can't it get it? Ta-da! Let me double check one more thing. Yeah, no, we're good. So what do we got? Property SID has no initialized and is directly assigned and they not direct, definitely not assigned. Oh, yeah, this is one of those configurations I don't think I added in here. This is a configuration change. Shoot. Okay. This is a simple configuration change, but necessary to do. And this thing is in the way. Come on. There we go. Property, no initialization found. TypeScript. There is a, you'll see what I mean in a minute. There you go. It's a quick change, and most of those errors will go away. These aren't the errors I thought they would create, by the way. Or excuse me, these aren't the errors I was expecting. Go to student app and it's in here. And just put that in there, strict. Yeah, strict property initialization is false. That way we don't have to initialize everything. The bad news though, this is gonna fail until you restart it. Come on. Go to the end. I just need to go to the end. Oh, I hate this so much. Right? I just want to get here. Forgot about that configuration change. Now, what can I do if I want to actually initialize everything? You just initialize everything. Right? I mean, you just figure out how to initialize it and you initialize it to something. That HTTP command that we talked about will wipe out anything you initialize. Ooh, still have problems. Houston. GPA does not exist. Property SID does not exist on student. What? Oh, student list component. Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, you stupid Michael. Come on, Michael. You're better than this. Let student of students. So you can't just put SID, right? You need. Or and I just save it, and it should. I just saved it, right? And it recompiled it. Since it's not a configuration change, it recompiled it. But you're gonna love this. It works, but how do we get to the student list? We don't have a mechanism to get to the student list yet. Why? That's actually in a routing module, and we don't have that done yet. But the good news is we can try to think of a way to fix that. We add the routing module. What's the number way to do that? Where's the it's employee app, right? Yeah. I don't have it written down, so we're just going to quickly look at the other one. So it's the routing app that we have to change. Okay. So what happens is the routing, we have to change the route. And so we're going to add some routes so that it can actually answer some questions. This has all of them, but and we're only going to deal with 3 of them. I'm going to copy the whole thing though, even though, yes, it is in fact, right? Even though it is in fact the, what you call it? I'm actually going to copy, even though it's not the right thing, I'm going to copy the whole thing. Why? I'll explain in a minute. So first things first, you want to import the student list. Are we not going to do the student list component? Okay. Okay, why isn't it importing it? Yeah, just look at this one real quick. Yeah, import. Stupid me. Oh, I hate that. All right. My life sucks. All right. I didn't think I was going to get this fast. Get this far. Employee. Nope. Student. Oh, oops. Come on. Oop. And there's our student list component. It's the only component we care about, by the way. So we're gonna leave that guy, we're gonna get rid of all these guys. We do want to talk about 3 paths that we're gonna become important. We have student list. And that is going to be this guy. Come on, Ruth. It's doing weird things. There we go. All right, so let's talk about this. I didn't want to get this far today, but I didn't want to wipe out the root container. I should have known we would get to this point. So the first one is the path, not given a actual path, like the index, just, you know, localhost 4200 / with nothing in it. We want it to redirect to student list. If you get a partial thing and then you want to go here, you can do so. Student list, if you get the student list path, go to the student list component. And that's what your redirect does. It's going to redirect, and it's going to cause it to go route again and then find something that matches that. You want the path match full. You don't want anything that ends in a blank, right? You want it to be just blank, right? And then the last one is a little bit tricky. If it's unknown, go here. Wait, what? If you go to something and you don't know what to go to, where do we go? Student list component, right? Then we got to make one more change, and I'm going to draw a blank as to where it is. So we'll just quickly fix it. I think it's in app component. Sure is. And then we go to app component. And remember this guy? Got all these things in it. Get rid of all that when we type router outlet.
That's all you need.
That's it. Router outlet's going to be replaced by whatever route component gets selected. That's what tells you what component's going to be selected. The document here actually has me wiping out the root component for the student list component. I don't want to do that. So we actually have to go to routing today. It's okay. Keep it simple today, and we'll go over a little bit more complicated things in the next class. All right, so I think got everything saved. Don't compile successfully. Let's try it out. Where's my data though? Nate, where's my data, buddy? I don't know if you like being called Nate, by the way. That's why I haven't called you Nate.
It doesn't matter.
You do not.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Okay.
Family calls me that, so.
Now, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it says access to XML HTTP requests at so-and-so from origin has been blocked by CORS policy. No access control allow origin header is present in the request resource. What is CORS? Well, I always forget. So I talk about CORS later, but the short answer for CORS is cross-origin resource sharing. What essentially that means is NetBeans doesn't, not NetBeans, Spring doesn't know that somebody else is going to try to grab the data from it, right? So it's not going to let you, right? But what if I want to allow it? I can allow it for specific areas by setting CORS policy. So that's what we're going to do real quick. We have one thing we have to make, one change we have to make. And this is going to, you guys are going to be like amazed to some extent. Also, let me show you something else. The server is no longer running. Sorry, I can't see them. There it is. And get error connection refused, right? That means the server's not running. Same thing though, it shows something, right? The way I have this failing, by the way, it fails in such a way that a list is an empty list, right? An empty list is fine, right? But an empty list is still a list, is the point, right? So what we have to do is we have to say cross origin origin. I can never remember. And it's one of those things with the name. I have it here. Here we go. And cross origin, and we have to specify the origins that are acceptable, and that is going, oops. Ish. Right? Okay. Now comes the part that you're going to be mad at me about. Do we need this if you transpile Angular into the JavaScript to insert into the static folder of Spring? No, because it's no longer a different origin. We no longer have Node.js working. It won't hurt anything though, so you can leave it. You can successfully leave it, but this is the only change that you have to make to my homework 3. That's it. Okay. Now, when you do sessions, there's another change. There's more. We have to do more than this, but we're good now. Okay. So now I'm going to run it again. We may not have time to do the if statement. I'm going to try to do it. Yes? It's fun. It's fun. Whatever. No, the if statements are really easy, right? The for loop is pretty easy. The biggest important thing, and you're going to see me do if statements and for loops later, don't get fancy. Just keep it simple and it's easy. Get fancy, then all of a sudden it goes from being pretty easy to being what the hell is this? Oh yeah, because we were screwing around with my list. Right? I guess I could run it again. Did I put that rerun code on it? No, I did not on this one. I'll have to do that. But some things we're going to see in the next few days is we're going to have formatters. This is what we call pipes. We're going to use formatting code to format things, numbers specifically. But obviously we can use styles pretty quickly. I could just have put the styles from our homework 3 right in here. I got fancy with my homework 3. My homework 3 solution will be online today. Everybody has actively turned it in. The 2 people that were sick did manage to turn the homework in. So yay. But we're going to do something kind of silly. Okay, just so we can show an if statement. If your GPA is lower than a certain thing, we're going to turn it red. That's it. Why am I going to do that? Not because it's important. There's an easier ways to do it, honestly. But I'm going to do it simply because it shows an if statement, a fairly simple one. Yes? We can do an if statement and we can do an if else statement. So it's a very simple one. So let's do both of them very quickly. Okay, so we just need the component HTML. And then all we care about is the GPA. So what are we going to do? On this last page. Stupid thing. All right. Good news, bad news. Good news first. Remember my NG4? It's just NGF. Pretty simple, right? The bad news with the NG4 is it's pretty impossible to screw it up. I mean, really, unless you add some pipe or something, it's pretty simple. As long as you have things in student array, it's fine, right? But it's pretty hard to screw up. The if statement, pretty easy to screw up. Remember our truthiness or falsiness, right? Remember those things? So those are a little bit, you'll have to play with. I apologize. You're going to have to play with them. It's not just going to magically work. Magically delicious, right? It doesn't work that way. So what we're going to do is.
So a lot of the errors just going to be formatting errors, which is what it should be in falsiness. It's just.
No, it depends on what you're using the NG if for. In our case, we're just going to turn it blue or we're going to change the color. Right, so that's what our NG4 is going to be. We're just going to change a color. I mean, essentially. But if you use an NG4, for example, if I wanted to know how many students were in, if I wanted to create a table if and only if student size was bigger than 1, bigger than 0, right? If I screw up my NGF, I'll get things I'm not expecting to see, right? So it could be a variety of things, not just formatting, but I don't like this example. So whatever. Let's do TD. Oh, sorry. All right, I will. I'm gonna do the else because I don't have an option. The NG will not show up if it's what's called. Actually, I can do both. Now I have an idea. All right, so the DPA is lower. Shit, I'm trying to remember how to change color of something. Easiest way to do it is this, right? Feel like I'm screwing this up, right? Oh, it just changed something red. My brain is farting, dude. Yeah, I think my brain is just literally farting. I don't know. And then I don't know, dude. I'm drawing a blank as to how to do this. So this is what I went with. Does that mean it's gonna work? I don't know. It's in red, so I don't know why it's red. But it's not going to show up. One thing I could do, and this is something you might do in practice in just general, is instead of writing an else, because you don't want to write an else, or you don't want to deal with an else, you'll do something like this. I'm writing the other condition. Less than or equals. Right? Or I got it backwards, didn't I? Yeah, get it backwards. Right? If it's less than 2, do this. If it's greater than or equal to 2, do this other thing. Right? That also works. And I'm just going to put the student GPA in there, just like we saw earlier. Now, the bad news is, I think this font color is not how you do this. So that's the bad news. All right, unexpected closing TD. Wait, did I not save it? Oh, I saved it. Oh. There we go. It actually checked my HTML to be closed properly. Pain in the ass. It's actually really important though, because I'm writing NGS, right? So now this, right, this works is going to work. It did work, so good, right? So you can write if statements without the corresponding else statement if it's simpler. There are times when we will do this because it's just easier, right? But we can, of course, write the else statement. We don't really have a lot of time, so I'm gonna do it really fast. So we do the NGF. I can't read my own handwriting. Else block, right? And then that's your NGF, right? But now we have to create a new thing to do our, oops, pound. And this will show up if and only if we need the TD, unfortunately. Oh, come on, Lee. Bastard. All right. And so now we have an else. And okay, screwed something up. All right, it says set attribute on element. Yeah. I'm an idiot. Goes in there. Sorry. I was like, why is that not doing what it's supposed to be doing? Right? Sometimes you do the NGF because it's just easier just to do. The NGF, as you can see, is, I mean, I hate to be this guy, but the NGF, as you can see, it was easier actually in this case to literally just write 2 NGFs. When you have 2 cases, it's just easier to do it. The else block isn't hard, but it's confusing a little bit. So you can pick and choose your battle there, but there is an if else if you choose to use the if else.
If you have multiple ifs, do they all go on the same line? Just like the,
What do you mean?
like if you have it like in between like 1 and 2 GPA, and then if it's in between 2 and 3 GPA, and then if it's in 3 and 4, and then else, it would all go in that line right there.
No, so you want to avoid that. So if you're doing a band, right? Like if you're doing a band, like from 1 to a GPA of 1 or lower, as an example, don't do a cascading situation unless you're doing the else blocks, right? If you do it like in an else block situation, great. You do NGF and just a bunch of series, those have to be mutually exclusive. They will both show up.
So just repeat stuff.
It'll repeat stuff, yeah. And it'll be like, why isn't it working? That's why it's not working, because it's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
So if you just write if statements, no else blocks, you need to make sure that whatever you're writing is mutually exclusive. Otherwise, they could both, you could have had both appear, which would not be what you wanted. Okay, so in the next class, we'll do more routing. Routing is going to get a little bit more complicated, and I'll go over routing a little bit more. But routing is going to go, we're going to go into a little bit more detail. We're going to do the student detail. So we're going to have a new one. Why do we do student detail? Because it's going to make the edit page much easier. We already have done it. So the detail, and then we'll have links, and then we'll be able to use the routing links and all those things as well. You are going to prefer to use a routing as opposed to creating simple links. You are going to prefer it. It is going to be easier on you to use the routing tools as opposed to what's called auto completion is one of the reasons why, but it is really, really much more beneficial. All right, that's it for today. I'm sorry I went a few minutes extra. I started a few minutes extra late, so. But next class will be recorded, and I will record it tomorrow now that I know where we stopped.